people. LinkedIn is being used by a lot of salespeople to outreach and connect with B2B customers as well as corporate customers. So in doing this, what I really have realized is a lot of people are doing it in a very, very wrong way, in a very intrusive way. And it is good for me to talk about my experience in coaching, training others, and developing sales outreach strategies using digital, especially LinkedIn as a channel. So let's first talk about what most of you who are in sales do when you are using LinkedIn. Number one, most of the time people would send a connection request on LinkedIn, and in that they would also type a message which is a very salesy message saying, "Hi, I'm so on and so forth," and the direct sales pitch. Now, this is the most common problem you find in LinkedIn outreach. And if you're doing this manually, still it's not the best way. And then there are a lot of people who are using tools for automation, and they're sending the same message to hundreds and thousands of people. Now, we all know LinkedIn doesn't allow bot and automations. However, there are tools out there that allows you to do this. Now, think about it, putting yourself on the other side. How many times as an individual, if you are on LinkedIn, have you got messages from random people who have no clue about what you're doing, which industry you are in, and sending you messages that has no relevance to your business? Now, when that happens, it doesn't sell. It really annoys you. It really breaks your mind, because as an individual, you will really hate seeing some message like that. I mean, I wouldn't like seeing a message like that if it's not relevant to me. I feel my privacy is kind of intervened, and somebody is just trying to sell to me. I don't see any connection. The main thing all of us need to understand is, in sales, for you to sell, you need to have trust. If you don't have trust, you cannot build a sales strategy. You cannot sell anything to anyone. First step of sales is building trust, building a connection, and connecting with the right person who has an interest, who wants to buy your product or service. So, in general, we call this as ICP, Ideal Customer Profile. You need to build an ideal customer profile of your business, whether you are in a service business or whether you are in a product business, whether you are in B2B or whether you are in B2C, business to business or business to consumer. One thing I always say is, there is no business to business or business to customer business. It's not B2B, it's not B2B. It should be business for business, business for customer. So it should be actually B for B, B for C. That should be the concept. Because if you are trying to sell something to someone who doesn't want it, you are not going to generate an interest. And this is not LinkedIn. This is sales 101. This is sales basics. If you want to sell, you need to find someone who has an interest in your product or solution. Now, how do you develop an interest in your product or solution? You should be able to solve a problem that they are facing. There has to be an impact that's created by solving the problem. If you don't do that, you're not going to generate any interest with that person. You're just going to be robotic. You're going to push something. There used to be a concept saying a best salesperson is a person who can sell ice to an Eskimo. Now, number one, why would an Eskimo need ice? They live in a place like Iceland where they are anyway cold. They don't need ice. So if you are selling something to someone who doesn't want it, you might consider yourself a good salesperson, but you're not building a strategy. You're actually losing people over time. You're losing your reputation. You're not building something that will sustain. So you should never sell something to someone who doesn't know or who doesn't want it. Now, saying that, what would you do because there's this concept of product market fit. Find your market that your product works. Now, when I say product, ladies and gentlemen, please understand, product means service as well. Now, when you need to identify your product market fit, general norm is you find a market where your product will work. If you have a good product, if you have a good service, there's always a market out there. But how do you know this? So that is where your research will help. Now, if you're a new startup, a new business, this might be subjective because you still don't know whether your product fits in the market well unless you developed your product as a copy product where there's already a market, or if you have developed a product or service where you've tested the market, where you've done something like a lean startup process, where you have done research, you tried it out, you pivoted and you developed it. Now, if you have that product, that type of product or service which is tested where there's really a market and people know it and they want it, you got a product market fit. If not, you are creating a new demand, you're creating a new product in the market, a new need that people never knew. Think about iPhone. When the iPhone was first launched, you already had other smartphones, right? You had the BlackBerry that helped in emails and basic internet browsing. So how did they create a new need? Because at that point, if you asked people, do you want a smartphone? They would have said, yes, but we already have it. But iPhone was able to create something new. If you take the iPad was actually shelved and iPhone was launched before the iPad because the team at Apple thought iPhone is a better thing to do. You need to have a small device before you sell a big device to people. So they went on a different strategy. So sometimes you need to create this market. So if it's a new breakthrough product or service, you might need to create it. So however, coming back to sales, you should not try to push something that people don't want to. But it's okay to try. So first point to understand is who is the right audience or who would benefit from using a product or service. This is the first question you need to ask. And when you ask that question, automatically you are going to develop and understand who your ideal customer profile is. So if you're an existing business, the best way you can progress is to look at who your existing customers are, because you might already have customers, people who are already buying. Go and do a research, understand what their decision making role is. If it's a business customer, what role do they have in the organization? When do they buy? What's the frequency? Why do they buy? What product or problem do you solve? That will give you an understanding. If you are a B2C customer, you need to still know the demographies, the geographies. When I mean demographies, gender, age, interest, these kind of things, because that will tell you and it will help you to define who your exact customer base is. Now once you know your exact customer, build a persona. Persona is you put a name and you define that person. For an example, you take me, you can say Yasas, you can put my age, you don't have to put a real name, but you can put a name and you can build a profile of who that customer is. So internally your team should know when you say Yasas or when you say mid-aged male, South Asian male, people should see several people who look like me. You should be able to imagine. That's how you build your persona. So the first step is identify the problem you're solving, your product or solution is solving. Identify who your personas are. And then you will know what is the common pattern of people that you need to outreach. Coming back. So now we are talking about how do you outreach people on LinkedIn. Now it might be real estate. You might be selling software. And when you mean software, you might be selling software, what you call SaaS, software as a service. Maybe you're selling enterprise software like ERPs or AI solutions or security solutions. Okay. Maybe you have a basic product. Maybe you're an artist who's trying to sell art. Or maybe you're an entertainer, like I'm an entertainer. So I can take that example. I am a mentalist. And who do I perform? Let's take me as an example, because it's very easy for me to relate and I think it's very easy for you to understand. If you take an entertainer like me who's a mentalist, I would always define my market. Who do I perform to? Most of my business, most of my performances as a mentalist comes through corporate customers. And when I mean corporate customers, what and how and why? So when I take a corporate customer, it's for several reasons. Number one, a company wants to have an entertainment act during maybe an award ceremony. And that award ceremony can be an employee award ceremony. Or it could be employee team bonding session, their annual retreat. It could be their annual get-together, like maybe an annual get-together, maybe a Christmas party, maybe an anniversary celebration of the organization, or maybe a big milestone celebration. So that's if you look at the performance is for the employees of an organization. Okay. Then you have other situations where it might be for customers. So maybe it's a annual customer gathering, maybe it's a partner gathering, maybe it is they are hosting a conference for prospective and existing customers. Maybe it's a sales strategy, they are educating their customers with a session or a full day event or half day event. So then this is for my client's customers. So that's another situation. Or it could be a VIP situation where a VIP function. Okay, so it's a high net worth customer who's throwing out an anniversary party, a birthday party, some celebration of a promotion, or some celebration of milestone in their life or in their work or career. And that VIP function would be basically in different locations, in a premium hotel, it could be in a yacht, it could be in a boutique hotel. So it depends. It could be in a private house, a villa if you take UAE or Dubai. So that's one situation. So let's look at these three situations: corporate and VIP. There are other functions that I have done performances for, but let's say corporate, and maybe corporate could be general conferences, it could be association conferences like the Toastmasters, like the Rotary get-togethers, the round tables, and so on and so forth. Now, if I go back to the first part, where I say, okay, my corporate customer is hosting it for their employees. Who is the decision maker? Who is the main influencer and the person who is responsible for hosting an employee gathering? You can maybe type it into the comments if you want to be part of this. You can interact with me. If you can type it, I could. Yes, I think you're right. You're talking of HR people, right? The human resources department. The human resources department in an organization is responsible for organizing employee events. So if you look at the human resources department, again you have a hierarchy, you have a structure. You have people from the HR director or the HR head to the HR managers, to the recruiters, the talent managers, the L&D or learning and development managers, and an executive. So you have a big structure. Now, if I am a mentalist and I want to reach out for company HR employee activities, it's definitely the HR department I need to look into, and in the HR department I need to look at the HR structure. Now, if it's a large organization where they have about hundreds of employees, you might most of the time have HR department, HR director, who is responsible for the overall organization strategy, HR strategy or people strategy. Now today you don't even call HR, you sometimes call it Chief People's Officer, CPO. You might call Human Capital Management. They don't even talk about HR anymore. In the past it used to be Personnel Management. Then you move to HR management. Now you're talking of Human Capital Management, because you look at humans as one of the main assets in an organization. So a decision maker most of the time would be the HR head. It could be the finance team because they have to allocate budgets, but HR team would have had budgets for these events. So it's most of the time for me, the decision maker would be the HR head, whether it's HR manager, HR director, or CHRO, Chief HR Officer, or Human Capital Management head, whatever the role is. Now, if I want to outreach this, because it's a B2B situation, though I'm a business, though I'm an entertainer, I am outreaching from my organization. So it's a business for business situation, business to business situation where I need to outreach to a particular organization. Let's say then the first question is I need to identify what organizations am I interested in, because I have a price that I would charge for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, maybe 1 hour. 1 hour is rarely I would take a 1 hour performance unless it's my own show. If it's my own show, then I would probably perform for 75 minutes. Now, in a situation like that, if it's 30 minutes in a conference or an employee retreat or employee annual ceremony, annual award ceremony, it's probably 30-20 minutes performance that I need to do as a mentalist. Now, in this situation, I need to know what I'm going to charge. If I have a particular charge, let's say hypothetically we are talking of 2000 dirhams. What companies can afford paying an entertainer for a 30 minutes performance 2000 dirhams? It's not going to be a small company. Maybe it's a startup that has funded, but there is a particular revenue expectation that organization would have because they are going to do this for their employees. So ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who have connected, we are talking about outreaching the right way through LinkedIn, and I'm taking a sales example, taking my role as a mentalist. If you're connecting late, this is why I'm talking about it. So coming back to the point, HR is my human resource department, human capital department is my main target audience, ideal customer profile, and within that, the ideal customer persona is the HR director or the HR head. So I need to first select organization. I can't take every organization out there, even if I focus UAE and if I focus Dubai as a geolocation. It can't be every company because not every company can afford that price of, let's say, hypothetical price of 2000 dirhams. So then I need to figure out what revenue would they have. I need to understand the profile of that organization. What organizations would be very focused on human capital development? Is it a high labor, let's say a construction company, but the blue collar workers? Whilst every person in a company needs to be treated the same way, the reality is blue collar workers might not have a get together of that nature. They may have other remunerations, other ways of basically encouraging that stuff, but they might not have stage performances, award nights, and so on and so forth. So it's mostly white collar employees that are recognized or have award ceremonies or employee development programs. So in situations like that, I can easily identify particular industries that might spend. In my business, since I come with an IT background and a marketing background, I've seen most of the time I work well with IT companies. So let's say IT industry or tech industry is my high level industry. Within that, I need to qualify the company in a particular way, maybe by the size of employees, the annual revenue. Now, how do you find the annual revenue? If it's a public limited company, you will have it on annual reports. If you look at the website, they'll probably talk about, we do this X amount of sales. Or if you do a simple research and use AI today, like ChatGPT, Gemini, or Perplexity, or Claude, or whatever, DeepSeek, you might be able to find an average or approximate revenue of that company. Maybe. Now, I'm going a bit deeper. If you do some research in their LinkedIn pages, you can even find out whether they've had employee get-togethers, employee award ceremonies in the past. And how do you know this? Because if you look at companies which are on LinkedIn, and if they are human capital based, most of the time they would want to brand their employer branding. They want to show as a best place to work, a great place to work, especially if they have awards for best place to work. If they're winning any employee type of human capital related awards, that means there's a focus of human capital development. That's one signal. It's a good signal. Next, you can really look at, with this signal, have they had previous functions? If you go through their Facebook pages, if you go through their LinkedIn's, or even if you look at particular hashtags, keywords like award ceremony, annual recognition, rewards, achievers, blah blah blah, you might be able to find certain ceremonies or situations that they have this kind of function. That immediately qualifies to say they are spending on this. And then you've got the revenue, you know that there's a signal or there's a real situation that they are looking at this kind of award ceremony or get together or annual dinner, you pick the right company. Next, we go into the ideal customer persona, which would be the head of human resources. Now, next thing, what do you do? Coming back to what we were talking about, how to interact on LinkedIn. Most of the time, you would think, okay, now it's time to outreach the HR director. So you can, when you go to LinkedIn, you can click on the company name, you can look at people, you can select if it's a group of companies which is a multinational company, you can select the location as Dubai if you are looking at Dubai, and then you can look at people, you can type the keywords human resource director, human resource manager, head of HR or whatever, and find whether you have those people. Now this I'm talking without using tools like Sales Navigator. If you have Sales Navigator, life is a lot easier. You can really do this filtering using Sales Navigator. You can save those lists. You can really star them and save particular individuals. But let's think we don't have any tools. We're just doing LinkedIn browsing. Now, you need to basically outreach to these people and you need to connect with them. But what do you do? Are you going to send a connection request most of the time? And if you look at HR directors, most of the time they have LinkedIn Premium. Either they have restrictions on sending requests, or they can also see that you are checking their profile. Now, for you to build trust, to build interest, I always take this example of dating someone. If you like someone and you want to date that person, you are not going to walk up to that person no matter how much of courage you have. If you walk up to that person and say, hey, I like you, I want to date you, shall we go on a date? Unless that person is really adventurous and unless you are known or you are really having something that kind of wants that person to date you, 99% of the time is you'll get a rejection. Because you are a stranger, you are not known, you're a random person who walking up to this person and say, hey, shall we go on a date? Now, this analogy is not different when it comes to LinkedIn. Because on LinkedIn, if you send a message to someone and say, hey, I have this product, I have this service, I want to connect with you, let's have a discussion. Why would another person want to join you or work with you? So always remember this. First step is building trust. Now, how do you build trust on LinkedIn? You can't do this overnight. You can't build trust with anyone overnight. You can't go and say, hey, dude, trust me. It doesn't work that way. You need to really build trust over time. So one way is you are interacting with people. You have to interact with those persons. Maybe you can look at their profile and see whether there's something you can connect with, you can resonate with. Maybe it's an award ceremony that they've had. You can immediately go and say, it's so nice to see that you are recognizing your employees' effort. You can put a comment, you can like it. Okay. So look at a common ground where you can interact with that person. If you can do that, you are immediately getting the attention. Now, most of the time, if that person is on LinkedIn and really spending time on LinkedIn, they will look at who is this person who is commenting on my post, who is this person who is liking my post. They will click and they will come onto your profile. Now, this is the next point. When they come to your profile on LinkedIn, what do you have on your profile? What does your cover say? What does your bio say? What are the posts you have shared, liked and commented on? If they look at your activity on LinkedIn, what does it say? Now this has to be linked in with the perception you want to build with your ideal customer profile. And personally, this is a challenge I'm having on LinkedIn because I play multiple roles. I wear multiple hats. I'm an entertainer, I'm a mentalist, I'm a coach, I'm a mentor, I'm a consultant, I'm a CEO, an entrepreneur. So obviously when somebody comes into my LinkedIn, it's going to be very confusing. But if you go and check Yasas Gunaratna and you search my LinkedIn right now, you will see I have put a cover page that talks about most of the skills that I have, so that if somebody wants to look at it, it's there. If you read my description, it kind of explains what I do. If they look at my profile, you will see what I'm doing. But if you're focusing on a particular business, just have one clear message of what you want to do. So if I'm talking about a mentalist role, I should clearly have my cover with mentalist related things. My bio should talk about performances and how I'm supporting performances on live conferences and so on and so forth. So that way, when somebody comes into your LinkedIn, they should be able to see a real match, and they should generate their attention and interest towards you. This is where the AIDA framework comes in: attention, interest, desire, and action. AIDA. Okay. If you can grab their attention when they come into your LinkedIn page, and reading your profile, if there's interest generated, then there will be probably a desire to connect with you. Now, what do you do in this situation? If you have LinkedIn Premium, you can see these people have visited you. But if not, after some time, you can go back and click, and maybe you can take a leap of faith after you've had your initial interactions, engagements with their posts. You can send a request. And when you send the request, if you want to put a message, and it's good to put a message, do not be salesy. I should not go and say, hey, I am a mentalist who performs in Dubai and I think I am the ideal person for your organization events. No, that's too salesy. Again, this is a situation like you kind of send a friend to someone you want to date and get that person's attention, and across the road you're like waving a hand and say, hey, can we go on a date? Still you haven't built that trust. So you should not do that. Now that you got the attention, now that the person you're trying to date sees you across the road, the first step is to introduce yourself. So what you could do is simply, with your connection request, you can introduce yourself shortly. You can say, I'm so and so forth, and I was really interested or intrigued by looking at how you are developing your organization's talent, because we are talking of HR development here, human capital management. You can talk about something that is related, and that would really grab their interest and desire to accept your connection request. And this can't be a one-fit-all solution. You can't try to fit, this glove in every hand, every finger. No, you need to personalize it. So you need to understand who you're sending this request to and have your message clearly to this person. Now, what I'm saying is not practical if you're talking about mass audience, if you're going to connect with a lot of people. And of course, at that situation, you need to have tools like AI, you need to have automations, you need to have personalization, like I'm saying, and you can't humanly do it for hundreds and thousands of connections. So that's another part we'll talk on another day. How do we do outreaching using tools? But I'm at the moment talking about a manual process of how you can outreach and manage this kind of situation. So make sure you have a personalized message, not a copy paste. Maybe you can use AI's help. You can look at Gemini, you can look at ChatGPT, you can create a message that resonates with them, but make sure it generates that interest, desire for them to connect with you. Now, when the connection is made, when they accept your connection, again, you are not going to be salesy. You are not going to say, hi, thank you very much. Try to build a conversation. And this is very, very important. If you don't have a conversation, you are not going to again build the trust, neither would you generate the trust for them to ask you questions. Because if you become salesy, and what I mean by sales is directly selling, trying to push your product or service to them, you're going to switch them off. You need to understand that they have the need, or as I said earlier, you need to generate the need. And for this, you need to build a conversation. This is the stage where you say, thank you for accepting my connection. It's nice to connect with you, or I'm thrilled to connect with you. And then you type whatever the rest of the things. So you start building conversation, and maybe when you know, now you have established trust, now there's conversation. Sometimes they may not reply. Always I say, have a give and take policy. Figure out a way you can give something that would benefit them, that they would understand that you're a person they need to have as a connection. So maybe as a mentalist, I could look at past events, I could look at things they've done, I could probably make them feel happy and nice and appreciated. So I could say like, oh, it's wonderful. I've noticed that in 2024 December, you had this employee awards night and you got these entertainers, which is fabulous. I'm sure your teams would have really appreciated and enjoyed the night. Now this is one way you can really build the trust, because you're not criticizing. Never criticize. Never go and say like, why did you pick this? You should have had a mentalist. In my situation, I'm talking. Or you should not say like, hey, why haven't you done this? Or you shouldn't have done this. You should never criticize. It's not good. You need to first start by appreciating and see what they've done right. Even if they've done something wrong, don't go and just compliment it for wrong reasons. But be careful of how you're going to engage and talk with them and what you're going to say. So then you can go and have this conversation. So I would say something like what I mentioned earlier, and I would say like, it's amazing to see how you are looking at premium entertainment for your staff, because I do understand as a mentalist myself, the experience you create in this award ceremony carries a long way, and it shows that your employees to your employees that you value and recognize them. Now immediately you do that, you are also talking about yourself. You're saying that you're entertained and you understand it. So if you're a salesperson, you need to understand and talk about something related. So if you're a realtor and you've got a connection with your ideal customer profile, you can probably talk about, oh, I've seen that you are a person who's making conscious investments in businesses, and this is very good, because it's great that I understand that you are already investing in real estate. Or if they haven't and you think that they might invest, you could always probably share something with them, like a white paper, maybe a research done, or maybe something about Dubai real estate market, saying, I believe this might be useful for you, and I'm sharing this for you, and in case if it's not, just let me know. In my case, I could probably share something saying top 10 entertainment acts to be used for an annual gathering. Or I could say a checklist for annual award ceremony. Something that's related to what I do and what they need or what they've done. Now, if they don't need it, and this happens very rarely, they will say like, hey, thank you, but I'm not interested in this type of things. Or if they feel like they don't want to associate with it, they'll still be open and they'll say like, hey, I don't know what your angle is, but I don't want to connect with you. I don't want to talk with you. Or they'll probably ask like, is there something that you think you can really provide me as a service? That is the best case scenario, where they really ask straight away, or they say like, hey, what is a mentalist in my situation? Or they will ask like, I notice you're a mentalist, and do you do performances for corporate companies? That is the best situation. Okay, best case scenario. However, now once you share something like this, you are already building the trust that automatically makes them trust you and start having a conversation. And then you will know, like what I mentioned, the right moment of pitching your business. Now if you're sharing a list, it could be maybe a PDF which also has your information about you at the end, and which talks about previous performances to other corporate companies, with testimonials, with logos. So automatically now your material has what you do. Or it could lead into a web page, a landing page, where you have other stuff, where you can say, okay, watch this, click on this link to see testimonials of my previous clients. And maybe you need to have HR people in that, especially if they know someone in the HR fraternity, and that someone you see who's a mutual friend. Best case scenario for you, you can use that person. Maybe you get introduced through a person like that at the initial stage itself. You can say, "Hey, I've seen XYZ from this company, is a friend of you. Since you've seen my performances, do you mind recommending this person to connect with me?" That's the best situation in the initial stage, because then you straight away go with recommendation. So figure out, how do you build this conversation, how do you give value, give and then take. And trust me, if you take this, if you have the patience to do this, if you take this process, if you take this time, you are really going to connect with your ideal customer persona. And remember, pick the right person. If you go to a HR executive who is probably just doing talent hunting out there, collecting CVs, that's not the right person. I'm not putting a person down, but not the right person for your business. So you need to figure out who is the decision maker or who is the influencer, not a gatekeeper. A gatekeeper is someone who blocks your decision. It could be maybe, I don't know, a finance person from budgeting section, auditing section, who would say like, "Hey, what are you trying to do? We are not spending at this moment." Maybe, I'm just saying. In real world, it could be a security guard, it could be a receptionist, it could be a secretary of the C-level person who would keep you from meeting that person. That's a gatekeeper. So find an influencer, find a decision maker. Maybe the purchaser themselves, the final decision maker and purchaser, who would give the PO to you. Okay? And outreach them. And do the steps that I mentioned. If you do this, you are really building trust. You are generating interest and the desire to connect, and then action will follow. It's very important that you take these steps. And this is the classic mistake you see. So if you go back and listen to the steps that I provided, it's a multi-pronged approach. You need to spend some time. And also I would say, try to have multiple people, because if the HR director is not connecting with you, you need to work with multiple people. Few managers, separate departments, okay? Or maybe if you think you will get blocked by the HR director, you should not go with the HR director straight away. You need to start with probably an HR manager, or maybe you talk to someone else in that organization who can introduce you to the HR director. You can openly tell them like, "Hey, I've noticed your organization having these events. Can you introduce me to this person?" And if you look around, most of the time you can find a mutual connection. Unless you're brand new to LinkedIn and you haven't done it, which is not the case, you can find some connection into that organization and use that connection. That is quite important for you. And maybe when you close a sale, always ask the existing customer if they are very happy with your service, and they say like, "Hey, thank you very much, I really am happy the way you worked with me." You can immediately ask them, "Do you think there's anyone else in your circle, your friend list, your organization, or your previous organizations you can introduce me to? I would really appreciate it." And most of the time people would support you. They will connect you with someone else if they trust you, if they build that relationship with you. They will never say no. They'll say like, "Hey, sure, yeah, let me introduce you to this person." That's the best way to connect. And remember, physical meetings are the best. That cannot be turned down, but I know it might be not practical in most situations. My business is not practical. However, if you can meet someone over coffee, if you can meet them for a meeting, if you can meet them over a meal, that is the best way to build trust. And jump at it. It depends on the sales value of your business and your service, right? But jump into those situations so you can take them on. But again, don't jump into situations like, "Hey, can I invite you for lunch? Can I invite you for tea or coffee?" For someone you have never met for the first time, you're not going to do that. Okay? You are making people uncomfortable. So identify these steps. What I talked about is one example, taking my example, and the ways you can do this, but your industry, your business, your product, your service is going to change the game. But the mindset, the psychology behind it is the same. You still need to build trust, get accepted, and then you can talk about your product or service through to them. So next time you get a LinkedIn message from someone or you outreach people through LinkedIn, think about this and go through the steps that I talked about. See whether they are doing the right thing. Learn from those. If you find someone who sends you a message that is very interesting, study that. Identify and try to figure out and understand why did it open your eyes? Why did it attract you? Why did you think this is an interesting value proposition? Right? Then you can kind of simulate the same thing. You can copy the idea and implement it. As I said, you can use AI. Have conversations with AI. Explain these steps that I was talking about, and see whether AI can help you and guide you in this. Okay, because that way you can really build trust and you can move on to that stage of getting an appointment. Appointments can be maybe a virtual meeting, it could be a physical meeting, or it could be even getting the phone number for a call, a no obligation call. Okay, but I would suggest not to request for phone numbers for people you haven't really built unless you know them, you met them personally. It's going to put them off. They're going to disconnect with you. They're not going to reply to you, respond to you most of the time, unless you really tapped into someone who has a severe problem that they know that you can solve. Those are situations, again, easy situations, because you tapped into them at the right moment and they say like, oh yeah, at the moment we are evaluating an ERP solution and it's great that you have an ERP solution, maybe we can connect. Now that's a problem situation. They know the product, they know the solution, and you got in at the right moment. But if they don't know the solution, for an example, if I take my situation, if a HR person doesn't think a mentalist or entertainment act of my nature would work for their annual award ceremony or annual get together, they may not really want to connect immediately. So you need to start educating them first. And if they come into your profile, as I mentioned, you should have enough content that talks about your expertise and why you are the best or your company is the best in that situation for solving that problem. That is indirectly you are pitching at them. Because if you directly try to pitch, if you directly try to talk and sell, you'll always sound sales, you'll be like a salesperson, and unfortunately, whether we like it, accept it or not, salespeople are seen like a real pain in the backside. Because people have got so many salespeople, whether it's insurance sales, whether it is wealth management, whether it is credit card sales, a lot of pushing, and cold callers. People picking up the phone and calling and kind of trying to push to sell things at you. That doesn't work. So this is why I thought it's very important, and I get this question quite often when I do workshops, when I meet salespeople, when I conduct certain workshops. I do understand this is a burning question, and even organization heads, CMOs, sales heads, certain people in the organization, they think like, they hear LinkedIn as a good tool and they think like you can convert immediately. No, you cannot convert. You can convert immediately, as I said, if there's a burning problem and you have the right solution and they understand your solution and they've been looking for a solution and you message them at the right moment. For that to happen, you have to be really lucky. You have to be at the right time, at the right place, and connect to the right person. So there are so many factors that has to go right for that to work. And it will work, of course. It will work for some. But the chances of it working is very less. But if it works, if you connect them at the right time, yes, you are assured to have faster sales cycle, faster meeting, and faster conversion than any other sales you've done. But the chances are remote. But saying that you should not, discourage, I'm not discouraging you to do that. But if they have that problem, and if they understand you've got the right product, they'll ask you from the first conversation. They'll say like, by the way, I noticed you are a ERP company. I noticed you're a mentalist. We are planning an event on December X date. Are you available? Okay. So I said that's a best case scenario. If they don't know, if they don't want your kind of product or service, or if they've had a bad experience in the past, then there's a lot of trust building that needs to be done. And it does happen even to me as a mentalist. I do get people who say like, no, I don't think mental reset works. Or they say, I am skeptic, I don't like that type of act, so I don't think I will book you. Then that's a different conversation which we can have another day. That's when negotiation comes in, where you need to handle objections and negotiate and educate and slowly win them over. You can't get offended because it's personal preference, it's personal action that's taken on that moment, and you can't overpower that. You should not overpower that, especially if it's a decision maker, if it's the right person in that organization. If you are a salesperson, one thing you really need to develop and be good at is lowering your ego. You cannot be egoistic. You should be very down to earth. You should be able to accept rejection without fear of your ego being challenged. Because if you have fear of your ego being challenged, you are going to come out rude. You are going to react in a negative manner. You are going to say the wrong thing. So rather than building sales, you might lose sales. And sometimes I've seen salespeople thinking like, it's okay, I'm not going to go to that person ever in my life. But remember, we are working in an industry, in a market, in planet Earth, where everyone is several people of mutual connections. Word spreads, and you never know where they will work next. And that organization, that company might be your prospect as well. So never make people angry on LinkedIn. Never try to be rude. Never, even if you've been spoken rude, even if you've been mistreated, ill-treated, do not get into their level. Do not try to build your opinion or try to convince them. That's not your job. Your job is, you can talk about your art, your profession, your science, but you don't need to really win everyone else. You can simply move out and go to the next person and next person and next person. So remember, it's very, very important for you to keep your head up and lower your ego and accept things through discussion. There are ways we can talk about how to negotiate, how to win over people. That's, as I said, the different days discussion. We'll do that as we go on. But initially, you don't need to worry too much. What you need to really consider is how you do this LinkedIn strategy I talked about, and try it out. Try this and let me know. Send me an inbox message. Maybe you can comment this video again. You can really get back and talk about this and tell me whether it worked or not. Because you don't need to do a lot of things. You need to do things right. You need to be efficient in your process. You need to be effective in your process. Okay. So this is why I'm telling you, it's very important when you reach on LinkedIn to think long term. But organizations can be pushy. They will ask like, okay, how many people did you connect today? How many people did you send messages? How many emails did you send? How many cold calls did you? I understand. I mean, I've been there and I know most of the time these questions are asked and you need to go one after the other. You can't take your time. But if you are showing your process to even your superior or your organization, your senior leadership, and if you explain how it's working, they will give you time, but you need to ask for time. You can't convert sales from day one, because the previous way of doing it, just sending a message, random message, being salesy, doing a volume game one after the other to the other, you are going to piss off a lot of people. You're going to really upset a lot of people. You might even end up getting banned on their profiles, which is going to perform negative on your algorithm. So you don't want to close your doors. You should be able to come back to a person who even said like, not at this moment. Maybe in my case, they've already decided this year's HR activity, or this year they've cancelled everything. Or maybe they are continuing with somebody they've already worked with. Don't undercut. That's not the way to be in business. Undercutting means it's a price war you end up with, and you will be talking ill about another person, another company, another brand, another service. Also, you will never win in that. I am a strong, firm believer of what goes around comes around. So do not talk bad about another company unless you really, really know, and it comes to the point where you build the trust and they ask your opinion, saying like, hey, what do you think about XYZ company? And don't thrash XYZ just because they're a competitor or because you didn't like them in a particular situation. Give your honest opinion. And there you will see honest opinions that you also probably didn't think of as an individual. So that's the moment you can really talk about it. But don't thrash someone, don't talk negative about another company, another product, another service. And you will be respected for it, because many salespeople out there would be doing that. They'll be talking negative, they'll be talking bad about another competitor's product and service. Recently I met a realtor who asked me like, hey, why don't you invest? And I said like, I've already invested in a property some time ago in Sri Lanka, and I mentioned the name, and he immediately went and he was very sarcastic. He said like, yeah, they have properties all over the place, and you know, they are, and he said something that really made me feel very small as a customer. Now when you make me feel like I made the wrong decision in the past, you are stupid kind of attitude, why did you invest with that person, that company? What do you feel my initial reaction is? I'm going to be defensive as a customer. I'm going to defend my position, my decision. I'm going to say like, how do you say that? I've done this due diligence and this is what it is, and I will counter it as an individual. Or I might move out, but inside my mind I'll be thinking like, what a a-hole that person is. Right? So never talk negative about your competition. Maybe you can, even if you really know that they are bad, you can maybe say, good to know that you invested with them, good to know you moved with them. However, I have some experience somebody else had told me, and if you really know it, don't create rumors, do not work on rumors. If you know validated information about it, then you may even seek permission. You can say like, can I, if you don't mind, I don't like doing this, but I don't want you to get into wrong situations, bad situations, because it's your responsibility. If you know something to educate, you can seek their permission whether they would like to hear you out. If they say no, that's it. But if they say yeah, please tell me, then you can say, by the way, if you have made the decision or if you are making the decision, look at these things, because previous customers have really told me their bad experience about it, but it's not everyone, some people. You will be trusted for giving that information with that tone, with that way of communication. So that is the way you could give negative thing. But don't do this on LinkedIn when you outreach. It's not the way. Unless you meet someone, you talk with them, because it doesn't sound good. When you talk negative about another product, another service, another person, another company, you're not doing a good thing, right? Or you can probably share third-party views, like third-party consultants, third-party aggregators. Like if you take the tech business, you'll have like the Gartner reports. You would have different reports like that talks about the various competitors, putting them into different quadrants. You can share a document like that. Hey, I found this document which talks about products in this, and you can share it saying, I thought this might be important for you, relevant to you. That is a point to build trust, as I said, give and take. That's a good way. Because when you say something, remember, your client, your prospect, the person who's talking to you also would judge you. They will wonder what makes you an expert. You are anyway a competitor. Would you ever talk good about your competition? You will talk negative. I have won many sales by talking positives of competition. By saying like, hey, if you are really looking at this product, I really think they are good because of these reasons, and please go ahead. However, if you want to decide on my product, my service, this is why you need to come to me. So see, look at my tone. I'm not putting the other down. I'm actually appreciating them, but I'm highlighting my strengths. So I may say, if they book someone as a mentor, oh, that's great. He's a good guy. He's a good lady as well. He's quite popular. She's quite popular. I've seen their performance, not bad. However, if you want to see this part, or I have a unique act, I have something different, And this, I feel from my past experience, might suit your audiences better. It's not to say that the other mentalist is bad, but my act includes this which might be relevant, or I can customize. I am talking from basically experience of performing in the tech sector, so I have done this for you. So this is how you would counter a particular objection, not trashing the competition, not talking negative about them. So I hope these tips that I talked about, this is actually a minimum days workshop of content that I try to put into 1 hour, which is not easy. And I generally, when I do it, I have my team with me where we do certain exercises. We develop the ICP profile using templates we do it in a game format, gamification, and we play devil's advocate. We have role play sessions. We show you particular software tools that you can use to outreach and automate this and do this, because this is frankly a boring job to sit and do this unless you like living on LinkedIn. So it's a lot of content, but what I have provided you free of charge by talking about it here itself is a lot of experience shared, so it will help you to really understand and really improve your outreach process using LinkedIn. It will save you a lot of trouble. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you simply follow what I said, you will still enhance your way of contacting and communicating and connecting with someone else. So do that outreach and engage. We call it soft touch approach. Do those touches, soft touches, before you go in and have a conversation, before you send the connection request, before you try to become salesy and sell your product or service. Use this step-by-step approach, and I guarantee you it works, because it has worked for many companies I have consulted and worked with. It works for me. I personally use it in my companies as a methodology. I can tell you very recently we posted a particular content that is what we call converting content, and we've got an immediate inquiry from someone from Canada where they talked about saying, hey, it was interesting what you're talking about, I understand, and would you happen to be interested to be working with us? And he was of course asking for certain case studies and certain references, but it initiated a conversation. So build your domain authority, build your thought leadership, do talks like I'm doing on TikTok Live right now. Okay, communicate these things, explain your expertise, your experience, build that will help you to build your community, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on TikTok, whether it's wherever, your own platform. The science is the same, the behavior is the same, the mindset is the same. So all you need to do is work on these steps and let me know. Send me a message, connect with me, let me know what I say, whether it made sense. If any of you have tried this and something had worked, share with me so I could share with anyone in the next session I talk about this same topic. I could share your experience. I can probably share it on screen. Yeah. So think about it. I'm sure you can benefit from this. This will be a game changer for you, and I believe this 1 hour of time that I was talking about LinkedIn outreaching, the do's and the don'ts, would really help you in building your business, being a better salesperson, generating, converting leads. All this would definitely help you. So I think I've come into the last couple of seconds, and since I don't see any questions right now, I will be ending this soon. So keep following me on TikTok. When you follow me, make sure that you enable the notifications so you get the notifications when I go live. And next time also we can talk about relevant, related challenges and how to overcome them in the same way. If you want any particular topic for me to discuss, send me an inbox message or you can comment below this video, and I guarantee you I will take it as a initiation and discuss this in another episode. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for connecting for my TikTok live session today. See you once again tomorrow evening to talk about another interesting topic, or send me topics and I could prepare to talk about such topics in future. Thank you very much. Have a good night, stay safe, and see you tomorrow.